I'm seeking advice about a complicated family situation. My name is Johnny, 32, and I've been estranged from my parents for nearly 8 years. Recently, they reached out wanting to meet my daughter. But after they funded my brother Bobby's failed business and left me in debt, I'm conflicted. My childhood in a small Ohio town shaped this rift. I'm the older brother, and Bobby was always the favored child, outgoing and athletic, while I focused on academics. Our dad, a former football star, prioritized Bobby's sports over my achievements. I remember winning a science fair and being overshadowed by Bobby's junior football team announcement. As we grew up, the favoritism intensified. I became valedictorian and got into a prestigious university, but my parents claimed they couldn't support my tuition due to unexpected expenses. Meanwhile, they funded Bobby's lackluster lifestyle. When I learned they had given him their savings to start an auto shop, it shattered me. I confronted them about the unfairness, but they insisted I was smart enough to manage on my own. I cut off contact after that, only speaking to them on holidays. In medical school, I found my partner Donna, who truly appreciated me. We married and had a daughter, Lily. A few weeks ago, my mom called in tears. Bobby's business failed, and now they wanted to reconnect. I felt anger and betrayal, wondering if they only sought me out because Bobby disappointed them. Donna suggested I hear them out, and I agreed to a meeting at a neutral cafe. I arrived anxious, recalling all the times they had ignored me in favor of Bobby. They apologized and admitted their favoritism, but they also confessed their motivation stemmed from Bobby's failures. I laid out my feelings about their neglect, asserting that any relationship would be on my terms. The conversation ended with mixed emotions, and I decided to maintain some distance. Over the next month, my parents made tentative contact, but it felt forced. Then Bobby reached out, asking for money for a new business idea. Furious, I realized he hadn't changed at all. After confronting my parents about his email, I felt my progress undone. 3 months later, my dad sent me a handwritten letter, acknowledging their mistakes and asking for another chance. We began communicating more openly, and he even sent Lily a birthday gift. Meanwhile, my mom has respected my boundaries, sharing family recipes and photos. Bobby is reportedly seeking help for his gambling addiction. Through this, I'm learning to let go of old anger and focus on my own family with Donna and Lily. I realize I can't change the past but can choose how to respond. I feel cautiously optimistic about healing with my parents while prioritizing my own family's well-being. Your thoughts on navigating this would be appreciated. I was determined to get into a good college and become a doctor, while Bobby coasted on his charm and athletic ability. He was the star quarterback, dating cheerleaders and partying every weekend. I still remember my high school graduation night. As valedictorian, I had worked tirelessly on my speech, but when I looked out into the audience, I saw Dad filming Bobby, who was goofing off with friends. Mom was somewhat attentive, but her gaze kept drifting back to Bobby. Even in my moment of triumph, I felt overshadowed. When college acceptance letters came, I got into a prestigious university with a partial scholarship. I was thrilled, but my excitement quickly faded. My parents told me they couldn't help with tuition. They claimed unexpected expenses had drained their savings. Devastated but determined, I took out student loans and juggled part-time jobs to make it through undergrad. I worked as a tutor, a library assistant, and even spent a summer doing night shifts at a diner. I was often exhausted, barely able to stay awake in lectures, but I pushed through. Meanwhile, Bobby had decided college wasn't for him. He worked at a local garage, spending his evenings at bars and parties. Our parents didn't seem worried about his lack of direction. They just chuckled and said, "That's our Bobby, always living in the moment." Then, during my senior year, I learned the shocking truth. Bobby, who had been working at the garage, announced he was opening his own auto repair shop. To my disbelief, my parents had given him their entire savings, the money they claimed didn't exist, to fund his business. I couldn't believe it. All those nights I had spent worrying about my mounting student debt, the countless times I chose between buying textbooks or eating properly, and they had money all along. They just decided to give it to Bobby instead. When I confronted them, they tried to justify their choice, claiming Bobby needed the funds more because he lacked a college degree. They insisted I would be fine since I was smart and destined to make a good income as a doctor. They didn't seem to grasp the massive debt I had taken on or the stress I was under. That was the last straw. I finished my degree and got into medical school, but I cut off almost all contact with my family. I only spoke to them on major holidays, and even then it was brief and superficial. I threw myself into my studies, determined to succeed despite their lack of support. During my second year of medical school, I met Donna. She was a brilliant, compassionate law student, and for the first time, I felt truly seen and appreciated for who I was. We started dating, and she became my rock, listening to me as I talked about my family issues and never judging my decision to distance myself from them. After graduation, Donna and I got married and moved to Seattle for our residencies. We built a life together, far from my family and the pain of my past. 2 years ago, we welcomed our daughter Lily into the world. Becoming a father made me reflect on my own childhood, and I promised myself that Lily would always feel loved and supported, no matter her path in life. Fast forward to now. I'm a successful pediatrician. Donna is making waves at a prominent law firm, and Lily is a precocious 2-year-old who keeps us on our toes. Life is good, but I still carry the hurt from my family's betrayal. A few weeks ago, I received a call from my mom. It was the first time we had spoken in months, and I could tell something was wrong. My mom was crying, saying that Bobby's business had failed and he had moved back in with them. Apparently, he made some poor decisions, gotten into debt, and was now unemployed. My parents had to remortgage their house to help him out. Now suddenly, they want to reconnect. They've been calling and texting, asking to visit and meet their granddaughter. My dad even emailed me, expressing how proud he is of my success and how he wants to make amends. Part of me wants to give them a chance. After all, they're my parents, and I do miss having a family. I think about Lily and wonder if I'm depriving her of grandparents. But another part of me is angry and hurt. It feels like they only want me now because Bobby has disappointed them and they need someone to be proud of. I'm torn. Should I give them another chance? Keep them at arm's length? Or maintain the distance I've established over the years? Donna thinks I should at least hear them out, but she's also protective of me and doesn't want to see me hurt again. She's offered to be there when I talk to them, as a buffer and support system. I'm conflicted between wanting a family and the need to protect myself from more pain. The thought of letting them back in terrifies me. What if they hurt me again? What if they try to use me as a financial safety net now that Bobby has fallen from grace? Then I look at Lily and wonder if I'm letting my past affect her future. Any advice would be appreciated. How do I navigate this situation without becoming a doormat or letting my anger control me? I felt the weight of the moment as I let my mom take the lead. She started apologizing profusely, her voice shaking with emotion. She talked about how much they had struggled with Bobby's situation and how they had taken me for granted, thinking I'd always be okay because of my achievements. It was hard to hear, but I also saw the pain etched on her face, the regret that had grown over the years. My dad eventually chimed in, expressing pride in my accomplishments and acknowledging that they hadn't been fair to me. He talked about the pressure they felt to support Bobby, how they thought he needed them more, and how they failed to recognize my needs. I could tell they were genuinely remorseful, but a part of me remained guarded. As they spoke, I felt a mix of emotions, anger, sadness, and even a glimmer of hope. I knew that my decision to meet them was to protect my family, not to recreate the past. I needed to establish boundaries. After they finished, I took a deep breath and shared my feelings. I told them how their choices had affected me, the years of feeling undervalued, and the stress I'd endured from student loans and working multiple jobs. I emphasized that I needed to protect Lily from the same dynamics we had. I wanted her to feel loved and supported, not caught in the middle of family turmoil. To my surprise, they listened. They didn't interrupt or get defensive. Instead, they acknowledged my feelings and promised to do better moving forward. We talked about what a new relationship could look like, establishing boundaries, and how they could support me as a parent without overstepping. As our conversation wrapped up, I felt a sense of relief mixed with cautious optimism. It wasn't a magic fix, but it was a start. I agreed to keep the lines of communication open, and they expressed a desire to be involved in Lily's life, on our terms. Leaving the cafe, I felt lighter. I still had my reservations, but I was ready to explore this new chapter while protecting my family. I knew it would take time to rebuild trust, but I was hopeful for the future, both for myself and for Lily. She started by apologizing for the past, acknowledging how unfair they had been. They expressed pride in my accomplishments and shared their deep regret for not supporting me more. Then came the kicker. They admitted that part of the reason they wanted to reconnect was because of Bobby's situation. His failed business wasn't just a simple bankruptcy. He had gotten involved with shady characters and accrued significant gambling debts. My parents had to sell their vacation home and take out a second mortgage to bail him out. As they spoke, memories flooded back. I recalled the summer before college when I asked to use the vacation home for a week with friends, only to be told no because they planned to use it themselves. Later, I found out they had let Bobby and his friends stay there for a month. I listened silently, letting them talk. When they finished, I took a deep breath and laid out every instance of favoritism. I recounted how they dismissed my achievements for Bobby's latest whims. I shared the nights I cried myself to sleep in college, wondering why I wasn't good enough for their support. I mentioned selling my laptop, a high school graduation gift from my grandmother, to pay for textbooks, and how I worked night shifts at a diner, coming home smelling of grease while they funded Bobby's partying lifestyle. My dad tried to interrupt to defend their actions, but I shut him down. I reminded him of all the football games he attended for Bobby, including the time he missed my debate team winning the state championship. I told them that while I appreciated their apology, it didn't erase years of hurt and neglect. I made it clear that if they wanted a relationship with me, it would require real change and accountability. She began by apologizing for the past, acknowledging how unfair they had been. They expressed pride in my accomplishments and shared their deep regret for not supporting me more. Then came the kicker. Part of the reason they wanted to reconnect was because of Bobby's situation. His failed business wasn't just a simple bankruptcy. He had become involved with shady characters and amassed significant gambling debts. My parents had to sell their vacation home and take out a second mortgage to bail him out. As they spoke, memories flooded back. I recalled the summer before college when I asked to use the vacation home for a week with friends, only to be told no because they planned to use it themselves. Later, I learned they had let Bobby and his friends stay there for a month. I listened silently, letting them speak. When they finished, I took a deep breath and laid out every instance of favoritism. I recounted how they dismissed my achievements in favor of Bobby's latest whims. I shared the nights I cried myself to sleep in college, wondering why I wasn't worthy of their support. I mentioned selling my laptop, a high school graduation gift from my grandmother, to pay for textbooks, and how I worked night shifts at a diner, coming home smelling of grease while they funded Bobby's partying lifestyle. My dad tried to interrupt to defend their actions, but I shut him down. I reminded him of all the football games he attended for Bobby, including the time he missed my debate team winning the state championship. I told them that while I appreciated their apology, it didn't erase years of hurt and neglect. I made it clear that if they wanted a relationship with me, it would require genuine change and accountability. I'll keep you updated on how things progress. Again, thank you all for your support and advice. It's given me the strength to face this situation head-on. Update 2. It's been about a month since my meeting with my parents, and I wanted to give you all another update. Things have been complicated. True to my word, I've been allowing limited contact with my parents. We've had a few phone calls, mostly short and somewhat awkward. My mom has been trying hard, maybe too hard. She calls more often than I'm comfortable with and always wants to know about Lily. I've had to set some boundaries, reminding her that she needs to earn the right to be a grandmother. Last week, she called and spent 20 minutes telling me about a toy she bought for Lily. I had to interrupt her and remind her that she hasn't even met Lily yet and that it's not appropriate to be buying her gifts at this stage. She seemed hurt, but I stood my ground. My dad, on the other hand, has been distant. He's only spoken to me once, and it was a stilted conversation. I get the feeling he's struggling with his pride, finding it hard to admit he was wrong all these years. During our one conversation, he mostly asked about my work, as if he was trying to understand the life I've built without them. The real drama, however, came from an unexpected source: my brother Bobby. About 2 weeks after my meeting with my parents, I received a long, rambling email from him. It was part apology, part plea for help. He wrote about how he had messed up his life, how he regretted taking advantage of our parents, and how he wished he had been a better brother to me. As I read the email, memories flooded back. I recalled the time in high school when Bobby borrowed my car without asking and got into an accident. Our parents had been angry but paid for the repairs without making Bobby face any consequences. Meanwhile, I had to take the bus to school for a month. At first, I was touched by Bobby's email. It seemed like a genuine attempt at reconciliation. But as I read on, the true purpose became clear. Bobby was asking me for money. He had a business idea that he was sure would solve all his problems, and he wanted me to invest. I was furious. After all these years and everything that had happened, he still saw me as nothing more than a potential source of cash. The idea was vague and poorly thought out. Something about a food truck selling gourmet hot dogs. It was clear he hadn't learned anything from his previous failure. I didn't respond to the email. Instead, I called my parents. The conversation was tense. I asked if they knew about Bobby's email, and they admitted they did. In fact, they had encouraged him to reach out to me, thinking that if Bobby and I reconciled, it would help bring the family back together. I lost my cool at that point and told them that their attempts at manipulation were exactly why I had distanced myself in the first place. I reminded them of all the times they had enabled Bobby's bad behavior, from covering for him when he cheated on tests in high school to bailing him out of jail after a DUI in his 20s. I made it clear that I wasn't interested in funding another of Bobby's schemes, and that I was hurt they would even consider asking me after everything that had happened. I told them that if this was their idea of making amends, they had a lot to learn about respect and boundaries. The call ended badly. My mom was crying, my dad was defensive, and I was shaking with anger. I felt like all the progress we had made had been undone in an instant. After I calmed down, I talked things over with Donna. She's been my rock through all of this, offering support and a clear perspective. When I needed it most, we decided to step back from my family again. The trust that had been so tentatively rebuilt has shattered, and I need time to process everything I'm feeling. I'm discouraged and hurt, but strangely relieved. This incident has confirmed my instincts. My family still doesn't truly understand the pain they've caused or respect the boundaries I've set. It's a hard realization, but an important one. For now, I'm focusing on my own family. Donna and Lily are my priority, and I won't let the drama with my parents and Bobby affect the happiness we've built together. Last night, as I tucked Lily into bed, she asked me to read her favorite story, The Giving Tree. As I read, I realized how different my relationship with her is from the one I had with my parents. I want her to know she's loved unconditionally, not for what she can give or do. This morning, I sent a brief email to my parents. I told them I needed some space and would contact them when I felt ready. I made it clear that any future relationship would depend on their ability to respect my boundaries and treat me as an equal, not just as a potential solution to their problems with Bobby. I haven't heard back yet, and honestly, I'm not sure how I feel about that. Part of me is relieved for the quiet, while another part wonders if they've already given up on reconnecting. For now, I'm taking things day by day. I have a busy week ahead at the hospital, and Donna and I are planning Lily's 3rd birthday party. Life goes on, and I'm determined to focus on the positive aspects of my life rather than dwelling on the past. I'll update again if anything significant changes, but for now, I think it's time to close this chapter and move forward. Thank you all for your support and advice throughout this process. It's meant more than you know. Update 3. It's been 6 months since my last update, and I felt it was time to share what's been happening. A lot has changed, both in my family situation and in my perspective on things. First, the situation with my parents and Bobby. After the blow-up over Bobby's email, I maintained my distance. I ignored calls and messages, focusing on my work and my immediate family. It was hard, especially around the holidays, but I felt it was necessary for my mental health. About 3 months ago, I received a letter from my dad. It wasn't an email or a text, but an actual handwritten letter. The sight of his familiar handwriting brought back a flood of memories. Birthday cards and notes in my lunchbox when I was young, before Bobby came along and things changed. In the letter, he did something I never thought I'd see. He offered a genuine and heartfelt apology. He acknowledged the favoritism they had shown Bobby, the hurt they had caused me, and the mistakes they made in trying to reconcile. He didn't make excuses or ask for anything. He simply expressed remorse and a desire to make amends, but only if and when I was ready. He wrote about how he had been doing a lot of thinking and realized how his own insecurities influenced his behavior. He admitted that he had lived vicariously through Bobby's athletic achievements because he felt like a failure in his own career. He said he had always been proud of my academic success, but hadn't known how to show it. I was skeptical at first, but something about the letter felt different. Maybe it was the effort of actually writing it by hand, or perhaps enough time had passed for real reflection. Either way, it opened the door to cautious communication. We've been talking more regularly now, usually just my dad and me. Our conversations are still sometimes awkward, but they feel more honest. He's been asking about my work and my family, really listening. While I'm still processing everything, it feels like we're making small strides toward rebuilding our relationship. I'm hopeful but cautious, ready to see where this path leads. When I talk about my life, my dad has also been sharing more about his own struggles, including his difficulty in admitting mistakes and his fear of losing his children. Last week, he asked if he could send Lily a birthday gift. Instead of just saying yes, I suggested we video call so he could watch her open it. The joy on his face when Lily excitedly unwrapped the toy doctor kit he sent was something I hadn't seen in years. As for my mom and Bobby, things are still complicated. My mom has respected my boundaries more, which I appreciate. She's been sending occasional emails with family recipes and old photos. It's a small gesture, but it feels like she's trying to connect in a way that isn't overwhelming. Bobby has finally sought help for his gambling addiction and is working a steady job for the first time in years. He hasn't reached out to me directly, which is probably for the best right now. Dad mentioned that Bobby is attending Gamblers Anonymous meetings and is trying to pay back some of the money he owes our parents. The biggest change, however, has been in my own perspective. Through all of this, I've realized that while I can't change the past or control my family's actions, I can control how I respond to them. I've been working on letting go of some of the anger and resentment I've carried for so long. It's not easy, and there are still days when the old hurts resurface. But I'm trying. I've also gained a new appreciation for my own family. Donna has been incredibly supportive throughout this process, offering advice when I need it and just listening when I need to. Watching Lily grow and helping shape her understanding of family has made me reflect on what that means for her. Last weekend, we had a picnic in the park. As I watched Donna push Lily on the swing, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't experienced in a long time. Regardless of what happens with my parents and Bobby, I have a family of my own now, one built on love, trust, and mutual respect. For now, we're taking things day by day. I'm not rushing into anything, but I'm also not closing any doors. My priority remains my wife and daughter. But I'm cautiously optimistic about the possibility of healing some of the rifts with my parents. This journey has been difficult but enlightening. I've learned a lot about forgiveness, boundaries, and the complexities of family relationships. Whatever happens next, I feel better equipped to handle it. Thank you all for your support and advice throughout this process. It's meant more than you know.